Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and it was only yesterday I was debunking the claims behind Donald Trump's justification for taking over law enforcement in Washington, D.C., and set out what I believe his real motivations are. But Sadiq Khan, London's mayor, has seen the parallels between the way Trump is misrepresenting the American national capital and the way certain Tourism Reform UK do the same with London, and decided he doesn't want to go down the same path. He intends to launch a fight back against Trumpist attacks on London. So how exactly are figures like Jenrick and Farage trying to copy the orange one when it comes to our capital city? But first, for daily news and politics, please click the subscribe button to stay notified. So, to understand why London has become such a target for culture wars, as Sadiq Khan is pointing out, we have to take a look at how he has sought to shape London, but also London's place within the UK, because it's going to be very important to understand where both sides are coming from here. Since he was first elected in 2016, Sadiq Khan has fairly relentlessly promoted a very specific idea of London, a city that is proudly international, outward looking, defined by incredible diversity. London is undeniably one of the most multicultural cities in Europe. No one argues with that. We're talking about a city that's like 300 languages spoken. Roughly 41% of the population was born outside the UK. Now, for Khan, that's not just a statistic, it's London's greatest asset. He argues that this global character is exactly what makes the city so economically and socially vibrant. His re-elections, including an unprecedented third term in 2024, are seen by his allies as an endorsement of this philosophy from one of the most diverse electorates on the continent, if not the world. And this vision isn't just talk, he's backed it up with policy and symbols. Khan created a commission to review the city's statues and street names, arguing that London's public spaces needed to reflect its diverse history. More recently, he's overseen the renaming of several London Overground lines to celebrate the city's culture. You've got names like the Lioness, Windrush, Mildmay lines. For the mayor and his supporters, these are not just cosmetic changes. They're part of a deliberate project to build a city for all Londoners, one that acknowledges a complex past and embraces a multicultural future. Not everyone likes this inclusivity mission. For the thick racists on the political right, London has come to represent something else entirely. The headquarters of a self-satisfied cosmopolitan liberal elite that dangerously out of touch with the rest of the country. And that is rooted in a belief that Khan's London is actively hostile to traditional British culture and identity. Even though Britain has an incredibly long history of migration and multiculturalism, but never let the facts get in the way of a good hate campaign. Critics have pointed out what they see as woke overreach. For instance, a ban on tube ads featuring bikini-clad models was framed by some of them as, it was a bit joyless, isn't it? Killjoy. Well, let's put up some adverts with Boris Johnson, Nigel Farage in a bikini and see how those people react. More pointedly, some accuse the mayor of pushing a brand of multiculturalism that doesn't unite people under a common set of British values, but instead encourages them to celebrate their differences and leads to people leading separate lives. I mean, this criticism has been international. Donald Trump has been attacking London for a good many years. He's repeatedly called Khan a nasty person who has done a terrible job. It's a feud that feeds a bit of a broader narrative on the right that liberal policies are causing London to decline, with a healthy dose of something else. Because, you know, Khan offends them on a personal level because, well, he's not exactly white. And this cultural chasm isn't just about statues and symbols. It's built on a deep economic fault line. See, this is where it's actually easy to get people to look at London with suspicion, because we have a fairly unique situation in the UK. For a very long time, London has been the UK's powerhouse. It's like a gravitational hub that sucks in talent, investment and wealth from all over, well, the world really, but definitely from the country, like a black hole. In other countries, I mean, you do have one main capital city, which is usually by far and away the largest city. And then you'll have another city that's maybe half the size and goes down like that. London's way, way big. I mean, the second largest city is tiny compared to London. So, and that success for London has come at a cost. There's millions of people in Britain that look in And you look at London, you go, well, this is excessively expensive, crowded. I'm a big one for that. I hate the crowds. And just out of reach. There's a widespread belief that the capital gets more than its fair share of public money. Boris Johnson used to say, well, the fact of the matter is, for every pound you put into London, it generates more of a return than anywhere else. And that sort of economic thinking has driven more and more money to come to London just because you get a better return, but it deprives everyone else. And it's that dominance that hurts the rest of the country. And it's an economic imbalance that has fueled resentment and deepened the cultural divide. This feeling that you've got this London elite dictating the national culture with values that many don't share, but also hogs most of the economic rewards. And the problem, of course, is that London has everything there. It's the centre of everything. It's our economic centre. It's our financial centre. It's our political centre. It's the centre of everything. We should really be separating these out. I keep saying we need to build a national parliament in Doncaster, right? That'd solve half the problems. But even for those living inside the London area, life isn't very simple. London, you can describe it in the American terms as a land of opportunity. It's certainly got a lot of the opportunities, but growing anxiety as well. You've got massive rents, a housing ladder that's impossible to climb, a crushing cost of living that makes life a struggle for a lot of them, especially young people. The city's pubs and nightlife, core parts of their identity, have been in decline, a trend critics blame on economic pressures and restrictive policies from the mayor. But these financial struggles add another edge to the culture war. It's one thing to argue about identity in the abstract. It's another when you feel priced out of an area, part of your country, part where you've grown up maybe. Watching it turn into a playground for the global super rich. There's a lot about London which, regardless of who the mayor is, breeds resentment. Basically, it was quite easy to get a lot of people around the rest of the country to look at London through uncharitable eyes. Culture wars are fought with symbols, and in Sadiq Khan's London, there has been no shortage of them. The debate over historical statues, especially those linked to the slave trade and Britain's colonial past, become a huge flashpoint. Many of us say, well, we need a necessary reassessment of this. We're not destroying them, put them in a museum, but for God's sake, don't showcase them on the streets. But others go, oh, you're trying to erase British history to fit a politically correct narrative. And again, you just try and say, history, you go to a museum for history, mate. Put it in the museum. Policing has been dragged into the fray. The Met Police's handling of large protests, going back to Extinction Rebellion, but pro-Palestinian march as well, has drawn fire from all sides. You've got some on the right who accuse the Met of being too lenient on certain protesters, leading to claims that parts of central London are no-go areas, right? Then you've got others that are saying the Met have been too heavy-handed, as they objectively were, for example, with the Sarah Everard vigil. The mayor, who's got political oversight over the Met, is caught in between, where every decision is seen through a culture war lens. Even the city's response to major international events becomes a proxy war. The Union flag turns into a symbol. I mean, it is a symbol, it's a flag, right? But critics now regularly comment on its perceived absence or presence on London streets, and they use it as a sort of litmus test for the city's patriotism. Oh, there's not enough flags. Oh, London hates us. Oh, right, that's the right amount of flags, that's fine. No, that's too many flags now. These flashpoints are rarely about the specific issue. They become tests of loyalty, of identity, of belonging in a city where every public act is scrutinised for what it says about the nation's soul. In the end, this focus on Sadiq Khan's London is about more than just Sadiq Khan or even just the city. London's become the stage for Britain's broader identity crisis. The 2016 Brexit referendum threw the country's divisions into sharp relief when London voted overwhelmingly to remain, putting it at odds with large parts of England in particular. And that cemented the narrative of a capital that's fundamentally different, politically, socially and culturally, from certainly the rest of England. For decades, London's politics has been diverging from England. It's become a Labour Party stronghold in a country that until very recently was run by Conservatives for over a decade and probably will be again before long. And this political disconnect feeds the sense that Londoners are in a bubble, right? They're isolated. It's like a country within a country with values and priorities that aren't recognised by some people in, say, the North Midlands or the north of England. Pollsters and sociologists point this out. Some are arguing that eventually the rest of Britain will start to look more like London as demographics and social attitudes shift. But for now, there's that gap. You know, politicians on the right have successfully made London, using Sadiq Khan, a starring character in the whole culture war. They've framed the city as given away to foreign interests or controlled by Islamists, right? They create a simple story that resonates with voters who feel left behind by globalization. And it turns these complex issues of immigration, economics and identity into a battle of us versus them, with London very much as the them headquarters. And this is what has led Sadiq Khan now to look at what's happening in Washington, D.C. and deciding he doesn't really want his own capital sleepwalking into the same fate in a few years' time. There are parallels. Washington, D.C., like London, votes for the more progressive option in elections. Jenrick and Farage, like Trump, want to create enemies everywhere to make people both fear and hate their own shadows, and they don't care how much damage they do to their own country if it benefits them personally. It is entirely possible that a future Tory reform government could copy Trump's playbook here, decide that London is a cesspit of crime and order over-the-top policing. Could actually work even more effectively in the UK than the USA, because here, you know, if you've got a major protest in this country, it's basically in London. Everything's in London. Whereas the United States got things spread out more, right? So you can have massive protests in New York or California or Texas, and it'll be big news across the world. Here, if you want to stage a big protest, you want to get yourself in the news, there's really only London. Or at least that's our mindset anyway. So shut down protest in London, maybe you shut it down everywhere. And because the far right tend not to do well in London elections, safe to do that. You don't risk your government in the next election. Trump isn't risking future elections by stomping on Washington, D.C. or LA because they never seriously consider the Republicans at the ballot box. Same applies to London. You could go in feet first without risking a backlash amongst the electorally important areas. But let me know what you think in the comments below. For more content, you could subscribe to the channel or even join for access to streams and behind the scenes updates. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.